Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of Truth by Billie Beene, episode 333, today's date, June 17, 2022. This is also a new channel. I know some of my Patriot subscribers say, no, I can still get to the channel where you were posting videos. Right, but I no longer have access to the Google YouTube account for me to upload videos to that channel where I was loading videos. So I'd like for you to subscribe to this channel. This is my new channel, and this is the channel to which I will be uploading this video and future videos. That way you can be notified, because you will not be notified on the old channel because I can't get to it electronically. So that happened June the 2nd. There was a cyber attack on YouTube and a lot of equipment was destroyed. That's why I have new equipment also. So thanks, like, subscribe, and share. And I'd like to say welcome back to the First Nations, Cherokee, Navajo, Hopi, Chickasaw, Mohawk, Apache, First Nation, Pitt River, California, Mohegans, Yakama Nation in Washington State, Potawatomi in the Midwest, Oklahoma, Ojibwe Nation in northern Minnesota, a proud people who want peace and justice, Choctaw, Abenaki Tribe, Cheyenne, Massanutten, Pequot, Blackfoot in Montana, Spokane and Colville, Powhatan, Seminoles in Florida, Red Crow Tribe in Kentucky, Salt River Tribe in Arizona, and the nations of Canada, England, France, Ireland, Philippines, South Africa, Netherlands, also known as Holland, Indonesia, Scotland, Germany, Switzerland, New Zealand, Maldives, Nepal, Norway, Australia, Chile, Thailand, Belgium, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, Panama, Guam, U.S. territory, Jamaica, Spain, an Icelander living in Spain, and other people in Spain. Wales in the UK, Sweden, Italy, Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, Romania, Bermuda, Bahamas, British territories, Morocco, Argentina, Northern Marianas Islands, a U.S. territory, Denmark, Bolivia, Uganda, Iceland, Serbia, Bulgaria, Mauritius, and the newest, Ukraine, the Czech Republic, Poland, Costa Rica, Malta, China, Hungary, Israel, and Finland. And we say welcome back to my new channel. Now, some of the things I'll be covering in this segment are mortgage rates are doubling, the NSA and the ACIO connection, and summer. Some of my sources are God of the Bible Patriot subscribers, Dr. Michael Sala, Real Raw News, Smoothie times 12, Alexander Mercouris, A Christoferou, Jacob Dreesen, Reality 365, Pastor Paul Begley and Mike from around the world, Galactic Talks interview of Jessica Ariel Marrocco, an interview of Gene Decode by Charlie Ward, an interview of Jim Willie, ShariRaye, Judy Byington, Patrick Lancaster, and Israeli News Live. So we say, let's get started. Okay, I have a Patriot subscriber. Welcome back from Mauritius. And Patriot subscriber, Semper Fi, from the Apache, an Apache living in Arizona. Welcome back. Okay, I have another Patriot subscriber who says, President Trump may return 120 days before November 3rd. So we'll have to figure out, when is that? And this Patriot subscriber was sending some information about arthritis. He may have noticed in my last video I was wearing the magnetic bracelets that Cliff Eye says works for pain in your wrist. And this Patriot subscriber says, what's good for arthritis of the hands is a quarter teaspoon of organic cayenne pepper mixed with 6 ounces of distilled water. And then you can sweeten it with maple syrup and drink it daily. So I'll have to give that a try. We know that just muscle aches and cramps can come on too in the summer when it's really hot. Okay. I have a Facebook friend who's talking about, we know that trial is going on in Washington, D.C. I mean, nothing we see or hear is real anymore. It's all staged. Talking about that January 6th event when the alleged actor JB was, I mean, the whole thing is staged, a play. But this friend on Facebook brought this out, this information came out, that those rotunda doors have a certain code to open. And they weigh 20,000 pounds. So for them to open, they had to be open from the inside. Okay. Reality 365 is bringing this out recently, and Dr. William Mount also brought this out. So Reality 365 was talking about 10,000 cattle in Kansas, and hopefully I can locate his video and link that for you, because I've never seen anything like that. It was thousands of cattle. You could see they were just dead with their feet up in the air. And this is 10,000 cattle in Kansas who suddenly fell over and died. Now, Dr. William Mount was listing in his video multiple locations all over the nation of herds of cattle out in pastures just suddenly falling over all dead. So we can certainly suspect something like maybe some kind of weapon from the air. All right. Now, Charlie Ward and Gene Decode had on Beforeitsnews this is coming out and being reposted because I've heard this in the past. And I understand the Alliance puts out old news and brings it forward for a reason. So what they're talking about is it was in England, and it was called Recon Beacons. And what this was a maternity hospital in England, and I think it was like the 70s. They had a high number of stillborn babies that went, and eventually the investigation led to the hospital being closed, but they couldn't come to a reason for it. Now, Gene Decode is bringing this out that the infants were given a type of drug that mimics death, and then they were abducted and taken to the deep underground areas by the deep state. Okay, now for some reason this is coming out again, and I think it may have something to do with making the public aware of that drug. And also Gene Decode was talking about 1957 Holloman Air Force Base, where President Eisenhower also met with ETs. And he's talking about another location, Dulles in Arizona, or Dulce, being a hybrid facility. And that there are non-terrestrial vehicles there being back engineered, similar to Montauk, also, which is like a mind control. Okay. Now, Decode is also bringing this out, that things are changing. And he is saying 217 nations, they're moving into Nasara. And we say, bring it. We're ready. We want all these positive changes to come about. Okay. On Beforeitsnews SCT interviewed Jim Willie, PhD economist from Costa Rica, who's talking about the mortgage interest rate, and multiple sources are coming out with this. It's doubling. It's going from 3% to 6%. And I've been hearing this also for months from also some local individuals who buy and sell in real estate, talking about the real estate market crashing. Well, yeah, and Jim Willie is bringing this up, PhD economist. His site is thegoldenjackass.com, and he has a global newsletter because his contacts are global. Hat trick. All right, so, and he's saying it's going to be worse than what we saw in 2008. Remember that? That was awful for the U.S. economy. So that's coming. And he's talking about the supply chain, the supposed food shortage, which we believe is being manufactured. Okay. So now he's putting forth this perspective that the food supply chain is being manipulated by the deep state so they can bring on digital money. You know, just have a bank say you have so much money, and it's not backed by gold and silver, and you don't no longer have currency. So, yeah, we control you through your money. So Jim is bringing this out, and also he's talking about the many food processing plants that are mysteriously catching on fire. Could that be something directed from the air, just as we're seeing with thousands of cattle suddenly falling dead in their pastures? Okay. And he's bringing this out. Real Raw News also reported on this, as I did in a previous video, about J.B. Secretary of Agriculture Millsap. Yeah, being arrested by the military and in Gitmo. And it was alleged that he had something to do with all of these food processing locations going down. All right. I think they linked him to a certain plane that could operate from the air and cause fires. Okay. Jim Willie is bringing this out. The U.S. government, Treasury bonds are no longer have value and are not recognized globally as having value. Neither is the U.S. dollar, accepted outside the U.S. And Benjamin Fulford had also been bringing this forward for the past probably 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. Now, Jim is talking about the U.S. $40 billion supposedly that went to Ukraine, but Jim is putting this forward, information from the Alliance Special Forces, that money was marked so it could be tracked, and it's gone to the deep state. not to Ukraine. Who would have guessed? Okay, Jim is also bringing this out, that the U.S. military and other sources are citing that recognized as commander-in-chief is still President Trump. And Jim's sources are saying that of the U.S. military, it's 40 to 70% who support President Trump and the alliance. Okay, and that there's much information to come out from multiple sources: Snowden, Assange, McAfee, the Chinese defector Cheng Wei, and recall the late Kirsten W. also brought information forward about the Chinese defector. Okay, Jim Willie has this on multiple sources, that global mass arrests are now being made, and they're called kill arrest, which I've heard described as they go to your door to arrest you. If you resist, they shoot you. Jim is interpreting it as they go to your door, establish your identity, and then they shoot you. So kill arrest. All right. And Jim is bringing this out, as did multiple sources, about the top generals in the U.S. military who support President Trump wanted to begin the mass arrest some time ago. And so now we understand that is taking place. And the generals want to make public to the U.S. people the number of senators and House of Representatives in the federal Congress who have been arrested. And Jim is saying that from military intel, there are at least 2,000 corporate executives inside the U.S. who are on the payroll of CCP, plus many people involved in federal government, state government, all the local law enforcement, military contractors, colleges, universities, medical. Yeah, a lot of people are on the payroll for the CCP inside the U.S. Okay, he's saying that CNN has lost 80% of its audience, and that 2 to 3 of its vice presidents have already been replaced by the alliance. Now, this is information coming from Benjamin Fulford, Canadian journalist who has lived in Japan for decades and has contacts globally. Okay. He's saying in May of 2022 that the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, in the U.S. went up the most it's gone up in 40 years to increase the cost to American citizens of how much it costs to live. And this increase led to money out of our pockets by $1,000 per month. So that's just since May. Are you kidding me? I'm amazed how people can go to the grocery store and just continue to buy, food for their families. He's saying gasoline's gone up 91%, wheat 39%, corn 30%, and other increases. So yes, I know that gasoline and food costs have dramatically gone up. Now, Jacob Dreesen is Army military analyst. He's also talking about the mortgage rate increase. doubling 3 to 6% just since May. So the objective of this strategy is going to collapse the housing market. And Jim Willie says it's going to be worse than 2008. All right. So Jacob is saying it shuts down first-time buyer. Real estate's going to crash and worse than 2008. Now he's providing some information about what's going on in Ukraine. And we know we've seen extensive shelling of the Donetsk area, civilian schools, hospitals. I think a chemical plant was reported today by Patrick Lancaster, who's an on-the-ground journalist there. Okay. And Jacob Dreesen is saying, yeah, they've dropped something. The Ukraine military has dropped on Donetsk, a civilian city with no military objectives, a population of less than 1 million, something like 300 bombs in the past few days. And Jacob Dreesen is calling it terror bombing. And he's also saying, look for a shift in the mainstream media to report that Russia is winning in Ukraine. Okay, we have A Christoferou, a Greek journalist, reporting. There's a new Russian strategy coming forth by Europe, and that's to continue pouring in weapons to Ukraine. But there aren't any troops. Now, in my last video, it was implied that maybe NATO was sending in shadow troops who were changing into Ukraine military uniforms. Possible. And that Ukraine, it would be good for them to be positioning themselves to negotiate a ceasefire. And A Christoferou is saying that he's hearing reports that some outside nations are going to be supplying Ukraine with guided missiles. Okay, and now A Mercouris, a journalist in England, is talking about Donetsk, and I'll draw you a map. Here we have Luhansk, Donetsk, Mariupol, Crimea, Odessa. This is Kherson. We have Moldova over here, Transnistria. Okay, so the strategy, the front line, the 1,000-mile front line that's running roughly in this direction includes these. Look at Izium, Donetsk, Kramatorsk. So this information is that Donetsk has been caught. Russia is going to be moving this direction with their troops. Now, also in Donetsk, there's a warehouse situation similar to Mariupol. And A Mercouris is saying that initially they thought it was about 200 military, Azov. They also have civilians there as shields. Now, A Mercouris is hearing it's more like 1,000 who are in this warehouse. Russia is controlling 80%, so 20% is involved in this warehouse situation. So And Alex Mercouris is hearing fighting along the front line is very intense, but that Russia is resupplying and bringing in additional troops and equipment. They're cutting off the Ukraine military in what's called cauldrons and then encircling them, dividing the Ukraine troops one group from another, and also cutting their supplies. Okay. Now, also, it's being put forth that the Ukraine military, or the shadow NATO, for the past few days has been shelling Donetsk civilians, and that now Russia is sending in reinforcements to this area, Luhansk and Donetsk, where the Ukraine military had come from Kiev into this area and had been shelling for days civilians. Russia is now sending in reinforcements and missile launchers to return this shelling to these Ukraine soldiers. So all of that is going on. Now we have we see that and the mainstream media is beginning to change their reporting and say that Russia is apparently winning. Okay, now we're moving on to sci-fi. Tano L of Galactic Talk interviewed Jessica Ariel Marrocco. Jessica was formerly, is currently, she's part of the ACIO, and she is doing interviews of Peter the Insider. Now, I'll give you some new information about the ACIO, Alien Contact Intelligence Organization, or some say advanced, but it's really they're in contact with aliens. There are multiple divisions, I know up to 15, and what was new to me recently, Dr. Michael Sala interviewed someone, and it came out that the ACIO, who is it a part of? The NSA. So for the U.S. federal government, oh, we don't know anything about this ACIO. They've been very secretive, and for some reason, in the last 3 weeks, a lot of information's been coming out. I think it's because events are going to be occurring on the earth and in our skies, and they're not going to be able to deny it. Okay. So now, Peter the Insider did a lot of interviews with James Rink, Super Soldier Talk. Now he's doing interviews with Jessica Ariel Marrocco. He's the director of the 12th Division that has contact with the ETs, positive and negative ETs, and negotiating and what goes on. Now, since it's come out that the ACIO is governed by the NSA, the U.S. federal government and the U.S. military needs to step forward. Okay, give us more information. So, now Jessica Ariel Marrocco is part of Division 15, called the Wing Makers. She's an intuitive, and she does other things like that, and she's been allied with the Super Soldier program. And it's coming out that Tano L whose YouTube show is Galactic Talk, and he's interviewed Decode many times, is also part of the Black Ops for the ACIO. He's a super soldier and works with Peter the Insider. Peter was born in 1970 in Slovakia. He was in Special Forces in Germany, I think in the 80s. He began working with the ACIO in 1990. Okay, he's also a super soldier. And other super soldiers who work with Jessica Ariel Marrocco, Tano L, are Lincoln Clay and Anthony Zender. And this is called Division 6. Now, Division 6 also has the Men in Black. We saw them in movies, and that's an actual division. And they do go out to sit where there's crashes or people are interacting with ETs and come there, take all the evidence, have little wands that they can memory wipe people. Yeah, that happens. Now, this is coming out, and I submit to you, this is one of the reasons this information is coming out. Because the veil between dimensions is going down. It's thinning. And has been for the last 20 years. And we will be able to see more of these forms of ETs, fallen angels, monsters, spirit forms. They'll appear, they may appear like ghosts. That's because they're vibrating at a different vibration than the earth. But still, if this is thinning, we will begin to see more of them. So now, Dr. Michael Sala also interviewed a Melinda Leslie, who is a UFO researcher, and she's bringing information out about different types of ETs, like the Greys, the Mantid, Nordics, Reptilian, what they look like. And she is saying that the military has been involved with abductions, and I think I brought that out. And they abduct people based on their genetics. Yeah, I've also brought that out. Now, gene decode, so they abduct based on genetics. Now, gene decode brought this out that, and I'm speculating that our population on Earth is about 10 billion. And Gene is saying that 30% are human. So that's about 3 billion. So that fits in with my thinking and my concept of how is this working? Yeah. So 70% of populations on Earth are not human. And these are the individuals who are abducted, I submit. And I knew it was based on their genetics. It just took a while to understand how is that working. Okay, now we're into Heads Up. And we'll be looking at some information from Pastor Paul Begley, Mike from around the world, who we speculate is with the NSA, and that would be the governing federal agency over the ACIO. Now, Paul Begley is bringing this out. This is a separate issue. That there's going to be increased flooding and earth changes, and that's true. The coastal cities, you have two factors along the coast. You have do have sea level rising. That was in the fall of 2020 that God said, pay attention to the magma coming up along the edges of the tectonic plates. And I understood inside the earth, everything's heating. So the water level along the coast is rising. Plus, the land is subsiding. So you have two factors there. And that makes it a good idea, perhaps, to move away from the coast for some people. Okay. And Paul Begley is bringing this out about small islands, I think in the Pacific, and they may have to, in the Indonesia, they may have to move people to other islands. He's also talking about Planet X, or a cosmic event, impacting the Earth and causing the inside of the Earth to heat up, and that's accurate, and we could have a melting of the polar areas, right? Okay, excuse me. Now, Mike from around the world is talking about, as is other sources, Yellowstone. They're having a 1,000-year flood. And some campers are having to really scramble to get out of there. Okay. Now, Mike from around the world is talking about there's been a die-off in the oceans, and that correlates to the internal heat in the earth rising. And we know that underneath the oceans, they're all sprinkled with volcanoes. So this heat would be rising, and it would result in death in the oceans of sea life. Now, what this is doing is on the land, there's carbon dioxide. Plants release carbon dioxide. No, humans and animals release carbon dioxide. The plants take it in and then release oxygen. But what is happening is, because of the die-off of the oceans, there's less life to take in the CO2. So the CO2 is increasing on the earth, and the oxygen level would be also going down. So that's not good. That's why God is in charge of, making sure everything is balanced. Now, this would and the electromagnetic shield around the earth is also weakened. So we do have an increase in radiation. All of this is accurate. I submit to you that all these earth changes is also playing into this social program of the governments around the world releasing ET information. Okay, rolling blackouts will become somewhat of a norm, and this is new to me, that all of these smart meters we have on our houses are all connected, and an AI is operating them. Okay, now Mike from around the world is talking about Iran, the size of their military on the surface of the earth is about 10 million. Who would have guessed? Now, underground in Iran, they have a different type of soil. They have huge caverns in which can be stored weapons, or weapons can even be tested there. Russia also is using these facilities in Iran and has been for decades. And there's a different soil And there are principalities down there, spirits. Okay. Now, Mike is putting this out from the NSA that there are going to be 7+ disclosures. You know, they're coming forth now with information about ETs and ET crafts and additional species. And they're going to reveal everything by 2023. Why is that time frame in place? About the fallen angels, Nephilim, the ET crafts. And here is the big lie that's going to be coming forth, that the ETs created humans, or an alternate lie also being put forth by non-terrestrial species who are not controlled by Satan, but are still different species, are also putting forth a similar lie, that they are seeders. We created humans. These are both lies. And so we as Christians have to remain stalwart, grounded in our Christian core beliefs, because these are lies. Now, Israeli News Live, Stephen Beene, formerly with the CIA, now has a ministry, and regularly gets updates from the Pentagon, talking about Planet X. So, an outside force impacting the Earth. Okay. So he's saying it's going to be visible in the fall to December of 2022, in a few months. So that also speeds up this so-called disclosure by multiple governments. Okay, it's going to be visible. We're going to see it between the Earth and the Sun. And it's not going to hit Earth, but the tail, the debris, is going to impact Earth. So, that's going on. Now, Stephen Beene with Israeli News Live, it's talking about events like spoken of in Matthew 24, Luke, and John, fearful sights we're going to see. And now he's also talking about the dimensions thinning. And we're going to see these ET forms. All right. And he's talking about June. We're in June 2022. An asteroid's going to come close to the Earth. It's not going to hit the Earth, but some of its debris will. And the deep state is going to put forth this lie that the debris from the asteroid brought forth a plague. But of course, the deep state has already put it together and potentially has released it on Earth. So, another lie. Don't be taken in. Okay, because who's in charge? That would be God. Okay, so some information from ShariRaye, Judy Byington. Okay. So ShariRaye is bringing this out, that mass arrest. And we're hearing that from multiple sources. Benjamin Fulford, Jim Willie, Real Raw News. It's going on. And the military intel is that, the mass arrests are going on of the deep state. Now, including, ShariRaye has this information, a South Texas mayor who had been receiving bribes from the CCP. He's been arrested. And she's saying that American Airlines can now fly to Iraq. Inflation is up. Yep, we're seeing that. Housing market is going down. Okay. Prices are up. we have corporation control. And she's bringing this out. I hadn't heard this number before. In the 1980s, we had 80,000 banks. Now we have, in 2020, 4,800. Primarily Citibank, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. And she's saying prepare for the U.S. banks to be going down. And we're receiving information from multiple sources that the Deutsche Bank and Bank of America are in bankruptcy. Okay. And she's saying that we can look forward to Nasara Jassara going up. These mass arrests have to take place. And she's saying that there's going to be some type of event in 3 weeks. So from about June 15, 3 weeks, by or first week in July. Yeah, I'm hearing that. Okay. Judy Byington is bringing this out. Yeah. President Trump is still recognized by a majority of the U.S. military as commander-in-chief, and that mass arrests are going on in 32 nations. And she's saying the Evergrande, we're hearing that, is being delisted from the U.S. stock market, and that was the Chinese real estate corporation. And it's going to contribute to the crash of the housing market. And she's saying that banks in the U.S. and Canada, ATMs, have been off and on since the previous weekend. And this is part of this changeover from the current banking system to Nasara. And that the deep state wanted to bring on a total digital banking system that they control through famine, drought, and plagues. Not working. Okay. So she's bringing this out. Russia is investigating. Okay. 4+ biolabs operated by the shadow U.S. government and shadow U.S. Pentagon and CIA, located in Nigeria, that are producing monkeypox. So we've been hearing about that. And I put out previous videos about that monkey accident. I think that happened in January in the United States that I believe is linked. Okay. Epoch Times. We know Joshua Phillip with the YouTube news program Crossroads also writes for the Epoch Times. So they have a claim. They're saying the CCP is saying they control Taiwan and that the waters around Taiwan are not international. So that ought to be fun for the other nations who have ships in that area. The CCP is trying to take over Taiwan. But Chairman Xi controls the majority of China, part of the alliance. And what's going to happen is the good part of China is going to get rid of the CCP, and then China and Taiwan are going to unite. The CCP will be taken care of or taken down. Okay. Now, I recall a few months ago, I believe I had a word from the Lord about Uganda. And now we find out huge amount of gold has been discovered in Uganda. So what has that brought on? It's brought on a rush by like the UN and WHO and NATO to bring in troops so they can take that gold from Uganda. But the alliance is also in the process of defending Uganda from this takeover. So God is blessing Uganda. Okay. ShariRaye is bringing this out. And we're hearing that, the mortgage rate has gone up double, 3% to 6%. Now, this is new information to me. ShariRaye is saying it's very likely we'll have the EBS by July 4. And in July, individuals are 62 and up will have their Social Security benefits increased to $5,000 per month. And she's in July. She's looking for that. And that currently banks in the U.S. are all training their people on new methods that have to do with the quantum financial system. So that's going on and coming about. So it's a great time to be alive. We Christians just have to double down in our basic beliefs and understand that God is in charge. Okay, short prayer. So here's a cleansing prayer modeled by Decode. We remove permission to be in us, on us, around us, on earth, off world, any dimension, any person, place, or thing not of God, any assemblage of fallen angels, AI, nanobot, and other forms of tech, any non-terrestrial species, spirit, thought form, operating system, genetic overlay, past, present, and future. We say, get away from us in the name of Jesus. Now, this is a short prayer based on the Passion Translation of Psalms 23, entitled, The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. I always have more than enough. He restores and revives life within me. He leads me in paths of righteousness. Even when I walk through the valley of deepest darkness, fear will not conquer me, because you, my God, remain close to me. You anoint me with the fragrance of the Holy Spirit. And I smell just like Jesus, whom many call Yeshua. Why would I fear the future? Your goodness and your love pursue me. You are my strength and my peace. And I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge and He is on the move. I love you and I'll see you soon.